Good evening and welcome to our Wednesday night word. It is cold outside, but today we got to a balmy 40 degrees. It's almost like being in Florida. So it is wonderful to be able to study tonight, and I'm looking forward to what God has for us. As I was driving here, I was thinking about all the locations you never thought you'd be in, all the things you never thought you'd do, all the experiences you never thought you'd have. And it was really allowing me to ponder the fact that God is in complete control, that God has a way of advancing us, opening doors for us, making ways for us, putting in spaces and places we never thought we'd be. And yet, often, God's control leads us into incredible surprises and experiences. In that, how often do we resist those things that we can't control, anticipate, manage? How much anxiety do we live in because it's not according to our plan? It's not what we arranged. And yet, because we are so filled with the angst about not being in charge, we can't see the experience. We can't appreciate the ride. We can't be open to the new. And therefore, we're in a constant and perpetual state of resistance, of fighting, of trying to manipulate. My prayer for you tonight as we get ready to move into this study, as we come into this holiday season that'll never be like a holiday season that existed before, is that you be open to God's exploration in your life. That you be eligible for the unique and amazing surprises that God wants to bring to you. That you not waste time struggling, trying to manipulate your life in a way that you thought it would be. And be open to the fact that God can take you places and expose you to things that you never knew existed before. Tonight we're going to fight our way through the concept of grief. And I want to suggest to you on the other side of that, God may have something beautiful for you, something amazing for you. But it's hard to get there when you are trying to hold on to being in charge. So as we move into prayer, for anyone who's on right now, anyone who's struggling with, this is not where I thought my life would be, or I'm not quite sure what's going on, I'm just going to invite you to tell yourself, let go. As a matter of fact, if this is your prayer with me tonight for you, I'd like you to put in the hashtag, let go. Let go of trying to be in control. Let go of trying to tell God what to do, when to do it. Let go of the anxiety that things didn't work quite the way you thought they would be. And in letting go, be open to the amazing pathways that God may have for you. Be open to the fact that God may be preparing to surprise you in ways that you had never dreamed of, take you places that you never thought you'd go. But first, you got to let go of the expectations that did not serve you well. You've got to let go of believing that you are a failure. You've got to let go of believing you should be in a different place or much further. And more than anything else, you've got to let go of comparing your life to other people. Because you never truly know what's going on in somebody else's life. It may look good on the outside. You may think they have everything you want, but there may be a brokenness that you're not aware of. So let go of your expectations and be open to where God may want to take you. That's how I want to open us up in prayer tonight. And it's going to be connected to what we're going to study tonight. So let's go to God in prayer. God, I thank you and I honor you for your grace, your mercy, and your loving kindness. God, I thank you that you brought us through a snowstorm, that the roads didn't consume us and have us crashing into things, that you've provided us with heat, food. And as we move into this holiday season, Lord, I ask for your blessings, that you may prepare us to do amazing things that are not even in the purview of our imagination. And we will give you glory and honor. Amen. So it's amazing to be with you tonight. We were not together last week because we had an amazing 3-day revival. I felt my soul replenished. It allowed me to get an amazing word from one of my mentors, a man who's like a father to me. I hope God blessed you in that. So tonight we're starting something new, and I'll tell you why. I put up 2 posts because I wanted to deal with the issue of grief. And the feedback I've gotten both on Facebook and Instagram have been really amazing and beautiful, and so it made me recognize that I may need to delve deeper into this issue, that I may need to explore it a little bit so that we can walk through it and be allowed to grow out of it at our own pace, in our own way. So I'm hoping that you all will allow me to explore this issue. As we prepare to do that, I'm going to invite you to do some virtual evangelism. Hit the share button if you're on Facebook, on YouTube, copy the link, text tag somebody. If you're on our website, do the same thing, so that we go into this and we can explore this issue. Let's go ahead and put up the first slide. So tonight I'm going to do, for the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, the gift that keeps on giving, salvation and starting over. God as a peacemaker. Because Advent, the season we are in theologically, Advent is coming, expectation. It's God coming into the world and helping us to start over in many ways. And so tonight, the one thing I want to deal with is sometimes we can perceive grief as permanent, as a permanent state of longing, a permanent sense of emptiness. And I want to sort of reframe it a little bit. I want to sort of come at it from the fact that, yes, there's some things that are gone, but there's some things that may be coming. And if we only stay stuck on the goneness, we can never deal with the coming. So I want to talk a little bit about salvation. I want to talk about starting over. Next slide. And a part of this, we're going to deal with what we call ritual and readiness. How does ritual prepare us in the starting over? Why do we have homegoing services? Why do we have AKA funerals? Why do we go through the things we go through? Why are there repasses? And why do deacons and friends bring you food? And I want to expand the notion of grief, and I want to come into it as a notion of possibility, of starting over. Not to reduce the pain, but to engage in a creative process. I also want to talk about the fact that grieving is not just about death of the body. It's about a number of things. And I want to deal with that a little bit. Next slide. So I'm starting because we're going to do a little bit of seminary work tonight, right? We're going to do a little seminary rag. Y'all ready? We're going to do some more in-depth study. I want to start by giving you a thought from a famous North African theologian, a father of the church. It's upon Augustine that we get so much of our early Western theology. Augustine of Hippo, in Book 1, Chapter 20 of his famous Confessions, says this, and I think this is really important, right? I think this is really important. Should I not be grateful that so small a creature possessed such wonderful qualities? He's writing about himself as a child, right? He's reflecting upon his childhood and his longing to survive and these other qualities that he experienced as a child. But they were all gifts from God. For I did not give them to myself. His gifts are good, and the sum of them all is my own self. Therefore, the God who made me must be good, and all the good in me is his. I thank him and praise him for all the good in my life, and even my life as a boy. So right now, Augustine is dealing with the notion of the goodness of God, right? He's dealing with how God has gifted him with the ability to want to live and this and that and the other, right? Then he says, but my sin was this, that I looked for pleasure, beauty, and truth, not in him, but in myself and in other creatures. And the search led me instead to pain, confusion, and error. I'm going to reread this because this is really a very important thing as we begin to study what we're going to study the rest of the night. This one line from Augustine is really critical. He says, but my sin, after talking about the goodness of God, he begins to lay out what is at the base of pain, what's at the base of confusion, what's at the base of mistakes. He says, but my sin was this, that I looked for pleasure, beauty, and truth, not in God, who gives everything good, but in himself and his other creatures. That's really important. Then he says, my God, in whom is my delight, my glory, and my trust. I thank you for your gifts, and I beg you to preserve and keep them for me. Keep me too, and so your gifts will grow and reach perfection, and I shall be with you myself, for I should not even exist if it were not by your gift. Now, this is really critical and important. Come back to me for a second because I really want you to understand this point. Augustine is probably one of the most important theological figures in all of Christianity. What he lays out is the foundation for much of what we believe. Augustine is saying that the gifts of God are good, that he himself is a gift of God. But where he suffers, where he struggles, where he finds disappointment, where he makes difficult decisions, is the seeking of pleasure, of beauty, of goodness in things and people outside of God. Now, I didn't want you to get confused. I don't want you to get defensive. Can you see beauty in anything? Absolutely. Can you see beauty in another person? No doubt. Can you see beauty in great works of art? Yes. That's not what Augustine is saying. What Augustine is saying is if you try to see the beauty outside of the lens of God's gifting, then you are likely to make an idol out of that other thing. That seeing the good, the beautiful, the right must begin through the lens of God. And once you place something else above or beside God, you have then corrupted that thing. And once it is corrupted, you are unable to deal with, associate with, value, or even lose that thing because you have made it an idol. You following me? Now, this is important because as I think about what I value, what I find important, what I give priority to, if I see it through the lens of God, it may impact the level of emotional attachment, mental angst, or energy that I apply to that thing, to that person, and to that situation. If God is the first, is the judgment, is the guidance, then how I engage that person, that thing, or that situation will be different. Let's go back. Next slide. And so this book that I've been reading, and it's really, I am not an expert on grief. We have bought grief experts here. We'll bring them here in the future. But I am starting to delve into it a little more because I want us to be able to deal with the fact that holidays are about joy and they're about grief. And this book that I'm finding really engaging on grief says, grief is admittingly challenging topic to investigate in a sober academic way. Emotionally complex and seemingly idiosyncratic, grief seems difficult to understand. Right? Grief seems difficult to understand. Beyond that, in order to understand grief, we must confront some of the more unsettling realities of life. So here we're about to get into it, right? Here are some of the more unsettling realities of life. And these are some of the things we don't want to confront, but we must confront when we deal with why we're grieving. You ready? That our emotions can sometimes prove difficult to comprehend or manage. That the people who matter to us are impermanent. And that because of this impermanence, our relationships with others are both sources of and threats to our sense of security, safety, and predictability. Then there is then much to be feared both in grief and in investigating it. So what he's saying is, because of impermanence, because the things we are attached to are temporary, if we don't keep it in relationship to ourselves, we will expect something meant to be permanent, meant to be temporary, to be permanent. Let me say it again. If we are not clear about the reality of temporariness, we will try to make temporary things feel permanent. That is the number one engagement, the number one thing that we've got to understand when we look at why holidays can't stay the same, or why mom or dad died, or why the job had to leave. Nothing in this life is permanent except for God. Next slide. So what do we grieve, and what is the difference between grief and mourning? And this is really important because I wanted to make sure that our language, that we were talking about the same things, right? Sometimes mourning and grief are viewed as the same phenomenon. But although they are connected, they are nonetheless distinct. Grief, as we understand it, is the specific and personal emotional reaction individuals have to other individuals' deaths. At its core, it is a psychological phenomenon. Grief is what happens inside us as we react to the death of someone who matters to us. The ways in which we grasp and describe grief are not private, since they are the product of acculturation. But the phenomena itself is private at its core. Come back to me for a second, because this is important. We teach each other so many things as we are young. We teach each other how to cook. I taught both my kids how to ride bikes. I taught how to drive a car. We teach each other things. We pass on things based upon culture. We teach our daughters how to do their hair. We teach our sons how to tie a necktie. In really thoughtful homes, we teach our children financial management. We give them their first credit card. But I got a question for you. Who taught you how to grieve? Who taught you how to react when grandma dies? Who taught you how to grieve the breakup of your boyfriend or your girlfriend? Who taught you how to grieve being fired from a job? Did someone sit you down and prepare you in advance for these things in life? Or did you come up to it like a wall and have to figure out these things on your own? Somebody taught you table etiquette. Somebody taught you to cover your mouth when you sneeze. Somebody taught you how to do all these critical things in life. We even taught you how to pray early on. Now I lay me down to sleep. I give the Lord my soul. We teach so many things, but when it comes to the uncomfortable things, who taught you how to get ready to bury a parent? Who gave you the knowledge and the insight to deal with rejection? Did somebody sit you down and teach you how to react when your eyes start to dim and you need glasses? So much of life's journey, we are trying to figure it out on our own. We're trying to manage and negotiate things when we come up to it. So much of what we deal with in our lives, we are doing on-the-job training. We are in the middle of it, and we're trying to make sense of it, and we have no idea because nothing prepared us for this. And because of this, we find ourselves in life crises without the tool set of how to deal with it. And because they're painful and difficult realities, some of us don't want to deal with it. And if you're like me, you come from a family where somebody in your house said, don't talk about death. We don't talk about them things because you may bring it on. We come from spaces and places that are so uncomfortable emotionally and psychologically, we just live in it in silence, and we handicap the people we love because we're afraid to deal with what we know will happen. It is going to happen. You are going to get older, and the body's going to change. If the cycle of life is true, then you're going to bury your parents. That the likelihood of you staying at a job for 50 years in this generation is not reality. That so much of what we will deal with as adults, no one gave us the tool set to engage it in a healthy way. And therefore, the rituals we need to deal with it, we have no idea. I've watched Minister Joan, Reverend Joan, meet with families, and they say, we have no idea how to plan this service. And it's one of the most powerful and painful things when nobody ever talked about the fact, even after the first diagnosis, that one day my sister won't be here. And so tonight, I want us to recognize as we move into holidays and things occur to us and grief happens to us and we remember people who are no longer with us, I want you to cut yourself a break. I want you to show yourself some grace. Because the likelihood that nobody told you how to get ready is true. And one of the things that I hope we can do over the next couple of weeks is arm ourselves and equip ourselves with the tools we need to renegotiate life and to work our way through the realities that will happen to us. And if you know that life is going to happen, and you recognize that in your imperfections and your limitations, you may not know everything, you may not be prepared, I want you to show yourself some grace. And for you, the hashtag is get ready. Because oftentimes, when we hear that famous word, get ready, when we all remember T.D. Jakes saying it over and over again, get ready, get ready, get ready, what we are saying and getting ready for is a blessing, but you better know that life will come upon you and will deal you some blows, that the reality of the world will happen to you, and you better get ready. You better get ready for getting older. You better get ready for financial hardship. You better get ready for people to fail you. You better get ready because jobs may not be permanent. You better get ready because somebody you love may pass away. You better get ready because your blood sugar is going to get out of control and your high blood pressure may get high. It is a consequence of getting older, but you better get ready because getting ready in advance keeps you from struggling so deeply in the middle of it. Grief comes so harder because we're not prepared. And because we're not prepared, we ask questions like, why me, oh Lord? God, you know how much I prayed. Why'd you allow this to happen to me? Without recognizing it's going to happen to all of us. All of us struggle, no matter how holy you are. All of us are going to lose somebody we love. All of us are going to deal with some health issues. No matter how much you pray, all of us are going to go through something. The Bible says the sun shines on the just and the unjust. All of us are going to engage, and we need to get ready so that when our turn comes, we are walking like victors and not like victims. When you get ready, even though the punch comes, you've been preparing. You've been standing. Get ready. And part of getting ready is having difficult conversations, both with others and yourself. Come on, let's go back and look at the slides. So what he wants us to do is not confuse grief with mourning. They are related, but they're different things. Grief is internal. It's what happens inside of us. Mourning is how we live it outside of us. Both have to do with culture and how culture shapes it. Next slide. Then he says mourning, in contrast to grief, is more public and often ritualistic. Many of those who are mourning are also grieving. In fact, mourning is a common way to grieve. In those instances, mourning is the public or behavioral phase of grieving. But it is possible to mourn, to participate in memorials, say, or observe a moment of silence for the deceased without grieving. So in other words, what he's saying is you can mourn and not grieve. Throughout human history, there have been professional mourners. It is possible to pay someone to mourn precisely because mourning involves engaging in a set of behaviors. So mourning is about behaviors and how behaviors are structured. It's not necessarily about grief. Paying someone to grieve, on the other hand, appears incoherent because there is no way for monetary incentives to induce the private psychological state of grieving. No amount of money can motivate someone to care about the deaths of a particular person in the way that the bereaved person cares about the death of that person. Paying others to grieve is thus no more possible than paying someone else to have fun for you or to sleep for you. Okay, come back to me for a second, because this is really important. He talks about the history of paying mourners, and I'm going to show you this in the Bible. But I want to ask y'all a question, because I was curious about this, and I was curious. Have you ever been angry at someone because they didn't feel the way you felt about something? I just want to take a little poll. I just want to see. Have you ever been angry because they didn't feel the way you felt about a death, about losing a job, about somebody saying something to you? You were angry and they were like, You wanted them to be mad with you and they were like, that ain't my problem. And because they didn't feel the way you felt, it deepened the sense of pain that you experience. I mean, have you ever been upset with somebody you care about because they didn't care the same way about what impacted you? I was just curious about that, because I often think that one of the things that makes our grief more complicated is the fact that other people don't grieve like we want them to. That I see so often in siblings that the family fight is about, you ain't yelling, kicking, and screaming about mama the way I am. And I want you to free yourself. I want you to give yourself permission not to have to act like other people in the moment. I want you to be okay with grieving the way you grieve. I want you not to have to fit in somebody else's box. And I want you to stop trying to control the way they grieve because it doesn't act like or look like or seem like the way you want. One of the reasons that our lives are so complicated post-divorce is, he dating somebody else already? We were together 10 years. We just been apart 8 months and already he got a new boo? That ain't your problem. Stop trying to put the expectations of your emotional experience on somebody else, and stop accepting their emotional expectation of you. Stop. Show yourself some grace. What does it matter? Y'all ain't together no more. Let him or her go do what they need to do. I did my mom's hair at the funeral home and nobody understood me. That's what you had to do. Praise God, you were able to give that gift and to receive that closure. But you can't stop that because everybody else think you. We have to start to live our lives in such a way that we can be free and uniquely able to live in our emotional truth without the burden and the baggage of someone else's expectations. Because the way you do it may not be healing for the way they do it. And the way they do it may not be healing for you. Because rituals, as a part of grief, are different depending upon how you mourn. Stop confusing mourning with grieving. Mourning is an external way of doing it. Grieving is the internal way of living it. And one of the ways you need to show yourself grace is moving in a healing pattern, allowing yourself to exist in the reality of your life. Stop feeling the need to be, act, cry, scream, shout like everybody else. And stop judging somebody's grief by the way they mourn. Because the way they mourn may have nothing to do with their grief. Look at him on vacation. He just put her in the ground. Maybe that's what she asked him to do. Maybe that's the way he wants to stay sane. It doesn't have anything to do with you. And when I stopped trying to put my emotional behavior and expectations on other people, it was easier for me not to put their behavior on me. One of the questions is the funeral for the living to grieve? The funeral is a act of ritual designed for us to mourn collectively. And then in a little while, I'm going to show you how mourning operates in a healing process, if done in a healthy way. Come on, let's go back and look at the next slide, at this slide. So, mourning in contrast is more public and often ritualistic. Y'all see? It's about how we live our grief out for others, not necessarily for ourselves. Many of those who are mourning are also grieving, right? But then it says it is possible to pay someone to mourn precisely because mourning involves engaging in a set of behaviors. It is external. Next slide. And so biblically, I want to teach you what this looks like in the Bible. Because as we move into the holidays, and as we move through our own sets of griefs, our own sets of traumas, our own sets of wish I woulda, coulda, we need to expand this beyond the physical death of someone we love. And I want to teach you how to do that. And I want to teach you how to put some things in place to help you learn and walk more fully in the next. This is Matthew chapter 9. While he was saying these things to him, suddenly a leader came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died. But come and lay your hand on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly a woman who had been suffering from a flow of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she was saying to herself, if I only touch his cloak, I will be made well. Y'all familiar with this, right? This is the woman with the issue of blood. But this is not the version that you are used to. You are used to reading the version in Mark because Mark makes a much longer, more explicit version of this. This Matthew is very short in his version. And the woman was made well from that moment. When Jesus came to the leader's house, he saw, this is important, when Jesus came to the leader's house and saw, what did he see? Flute players and a crowd making commotion. He said, go away, for the girl is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went in and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And a report of this spread throughout all the district. Now, I want to go back and I want to look at this because I think there's some very important pieces here that we need to understand. So I'm going to start from the top because the Bible makes no confusion about the use of certain terms. So this man is a leader. Matthew tells us he's a leader. And his daughter has died. Right? His daughter has died. Now, verse 18 is the first thing I want to point out. Because if the daughter has died, why does he come and say, lay hands on her and she will live? He believes that Jesus has the power to control death. Come back to me for a second because this is important. I'm wondering how many of us believe that God is in charge of life and death. I mean, how many of us have matured so deeply in our faith that we believe that God is ruling when life starts and when life is over? How many of us think we have more control over that than God? And therefore, we get angry because things ended before we wanted them to end. We get confused when something is over before we thought it should be over. And in a sense, seeing life through God's eyes has to come down to the fact that God will control above and beyond our expectation when it starts and when it ends. And if God is in control of that, could we have an inability to deal with the realities of life theologically because we wanted more, or we should determine when, or we should decide how, or we get angry because? This is a normal human reality, don't get me wrong. But the theologian, the philosopher in me is wondering if it's an inability to accept that God has the ultimate decision-making and power. And that is it also an inability to accept that God has something after that we don't know? The man comes to Jesus and says, my daughter has died. but I believe you got some power. I believe you can make a way. I believe that your will is bigger than death. Whatever that looks like. And beloved, one of the things that I want you to hold on to, no matter what you're feeling in any given moment, is but. That conjunction, that ability for God to deal with what came before in a totally different way after. But. You got a diagnosis, but. You're struggling with depression, but. You've lost a job right before the holidays, but. Our faith must always be connected to the fact that God is in charge of every moment that we are existing in. And I need somebody who's almost given up, somebody who's questioning why, somebody who's struggling in, just to put that hashtag there for me, hashtag but. You haven't seen your child in 5 years, y'all done fell out, and nobody's speaking to anybody else, but you have been struggling all of 2025, and you just need God to give you a break going into 2026, but you don't understand why people act the way they act. You don't understand why the wicked seem to be prospering, but I'm here to tell you that there are moments in which you have tried everything you know how to do, and the only thing you can do right now is trust that God has something different behind that conjunction. You drank it, you smoked it, you laid down with it, you prayed about it, but. And I'm here to suggest to you that much of our grief may not be about what happened, but our inability to accept that it happened. Our inability to believe that God can intervene in our situations and provide us with a sense of peace and joy in the middle of it, but that on the other side of it, there is something else but. And we may not understand it. We may not be able to control it. We may not like it. But God is still doing something even in the midst of our tears, but. And the critical key is not to give up on God, but to trust that God has something so much greater and grander that we have not been exposed to, but. And as a person who has had to learn to deal with endings that have not been points of joy. As a pastor, I've buried my grandparents. Everybody who raised me. I remember standing and speaking at my father's funeral. I remember saying the last prayer over my grandfather and preaching both my grandmother's eulogies. I remember all those moments, and I remember thinking that I don't know, God, if I can handle it, but the only thing that kept me going through was a but. I remember not knowing if I was going to graduate from college. I remember not being able to pay my rent. I remember going through depression around feeling that my friends were surpassing me in their accomplishments. And then in the middle of it all, there was one breakthrough. There was my but. I remember going through divorce. I remember feeling like I had failed my children. I remember losing a house. I remember all these things. I remember thinking that my life was not supposed to be like this. I did what I was supposed to do, and in the middle of it, I remember people who didn't know me making decisions about me. I remember people judgment, and I remember in the middle of it all, God kept saying to me, stay faithful. I got something better. But, And I'm here to tell you that your depression and your anxiety is window dressing. That your angst over things you can't control is trying to seduce you to making a quick decision. That is not God's will in your life. God will respond to your needs often in your darkest moments. Now, the question has been asked, am I wrong for not wanting a funeral? I tell people this all the time. The funeral is not about you. Nobody attends their own funeral. You're not even there in the casket. The funeral is about those you leave behind. And maybe the question you need to ask is, what do you all need to start your healing? Maybe we shouldn't argue about the act of mourning. And maybe we should talk about what you need to mourn for healing. Don't get caught up in the service. Think about what the service is intended to do. And maybe you have such good life insurance that you want to tell your family, look, y'all don't have a funeral for me at First Baptist. I done left y'all enough. I done left a sum of money aside for y'all to buy plane tickets. I want y'all to all go to Barbados, take my ashes and spread them on the sand in Barbados. Take the pastor with you so he can say a prayer. Put the pastor in a suite so he's comfortable and sleeps well the night before you spread my ashes. You can plan it like that if that's what's going to help them mourn. But y'all see, sometimes we get so caught up in the mourning, in the public display, that we lose the fact that it's meant to help us heal in our grieving. And we grieve so many things. We grieve children growing up and leaving our house. See, one of my posts last week was about the fact that my babies are no longer babies. That my son had the audacity as a senior at Morehouse College, my child, whom I pay his tuition, I pay his rent, I pay for his food, this boy had the nerve to say to me, Dad, I want to go spend Thanksgiving Day with a friend in Maryland. I am choosing not to be with you on Thanksgiving Day, knowing that you make a big deal out of these holidays. I am choosing to go be with my friends somewhere else. I said, well, go on and do your thing, son. But I grieved a little bit. I grieved because it's not my baby who wants to be up under me. I grieved because my daughter at 18, when I want to be all up under her and kiss her on the cheeks and give her Zerberts at her place, says, Dad, don't do that right now. Where's my baby? We grieve so many things, and nobody prepared us for it. They prepared us to start college funds, but did they prepare us for the day we were going to walk out that dorm room and leave them behind? And so I want you all to think more about the healing and what the ritual is meant to do over and against the ritual itself. Because some children need a funeral. Some don't. Some want their pastor to go to the south of France and say a prayer on the French Riviera. I'll do that for you. I'm going to make that sacrifice for that 14-hour flight in first class for you, if that's what brings your family healing. Come on, let's look, because I got to close this out. We got a few minutes, but I'm going to make sense out of all of this. He comes, he says, my daughter just died. But come lay your hand on her. And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly, a woman who had been suffering, this is the woman with the issue of blood. We're going to skip over her for now, because I'm going to talk about a different form of grieving with her. Well, no, let's stop. Let's deal with her real quick. Let's deal with her. Let's deal with this woman. Now, Matthew doesn't tell us, but Mark tells us that she's been doing this for 12 years. For 12 years. Mark tells us she spent all the money. She's seen every doctor. She's unable to walk in the public. She can't be touched. She can't go to church. But she says to herself, Matthew tells us for 12 years, She says to herself in verse 21, for she was saying to herself, if I only touch his cloak, I will be made well. Come back to me for a second. We've been talking about homegoing services, but I want to talk to you really about what does it mean to speak to yourself in your grief. Grief is about the loss of expectation. I expect you to be alive tomorrow morning. I expect not to be furloughed from my job. I expect to be able to get out of bed, put my feet on the ground, and not have arthritis pain in my knee until it happens one day. Managing expectations is about managing grief. Nobody, in all the years I've been doing weddings, I've never seen a groom stand at the end of an aisle and watch a bride come down the middle aisle and say to herself, I can't wait to get divorced. I don't know a groom personally who said, boy, in about 5 years, I'm gonna get rid of her and lose half of everything I own. The grief comes in the fact that often our expectations are not met. And one of the ways that we manage is dealing with our expectations. And one of the things that we have to do is learn to speak to ourselves, to manage our own sense of what we need to handle life's difficulties, to delve into the vicissitudes, the realities of the world, and recognize that those realities are what they are. What matters and what changes is how I encounter that reality. The reality is everybody's going to die. How do I manage that reality? The reality is I am not going to live forever. So I can be afraid of what I know is going to come, or I can set my expectations to live in a way that while I have this time, I do it to the best of my ability. I want somebody to understand, somebody who knows that maybe they've lived their lives, that they've been blessed, that they have been fortunate, that God has been taking care of them, and yet they recognize they can do better. They can live more peacefully. They can have more joy. They can cry a little less if they manage the expectations. And the hashtag for you is simple. Hashtag expectations. If you learn nothing else tonight, I want you to understand that if you begin to deal with what you expect, if you speak to what you expect, Grow in what you expect. Maybe modify what you expect. How you encounter the life that comes next will be predicated on how you deal with the expectations. And when life does not meet you where your expectations were, are you able to grow to a different space? Are you able to pivot to a different mindset? Are you able to meet your disappointment and then adjust your expectations? Because if you get so stuck and you are so rigid, and if it doesn't go the way you expect it to go, you'd rather die, you'd rather bend over, you'd rather give up, you'd rather hold on to your expectations over and against what God may have for you. God bless you. I am a pastor. I marry people. I never expected to be single at this point in my life. I have outlived my father and my uncle. I did not have a father or uncle who could teach me what to expect at this point in my life. And so the creation of expectations can change every day if you decide to be flexible. And what I'm here to tell you is your tears and your joy is connected to what you expect. Can you put it up? Because I've got to get out of here. It's 8:05, but I want you to show you something. This woman for 12 years has been bleeding, but she expected something. She expected her butt. She expected God to do something for her. Her expectation is, if I can break through this crowd and I can just get close enough to God, I expect there's a power. This man whose daughter died, he had an expectation. This is not about the healing. The healing occurred before Jesus had anything to do with it. The healing was about their expectations. Jesus had not touched the daughter, but the father said, but come lay hands and she'll be alive. That's an expectation. This woman said, if I can just touch him, and listen to how God responded to the expectation. Verse 23, when Jesus came to the leader, verse 22, Jesus turned and seeing her said, take heart, daughter. Your faith has made you well. Not my cloak, not the touch. Baby, you fighting through this crowd. Your faith made you well. Oh, I have not even scratched the surface of what I got for y'all the next couple of weeks. Come back to me because we got to go. What I'm here to say to y'all is growing in God is growing in expectations. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I talked like a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. One of the reasons we suffer and struggle is because we have expectations that are not rooted in God. When you ground your expectations in a God who makes water wet, when you put your expectations in a God who says knock, if you place your expectations in a God where Jesus was in the garden who said, not my will, but thy will be done, when you begin to recognize that you are only bound to the will of God, and sometimes what makes us struggle and suffer and cry and fight is in what Augustine said. And this is where I want to close. Can you go back to slide, I believe, number 3 for me? This is what Augustine said. But my sin was this, that I looked for pleasure, beauty, and truth, not in him, but in myself and his other creatures. And the search led me instead to pain, confusion, and error. My God, in whom my delight, my glory, and my trust, I thank you for your gifts, and I beg you to preserve and keep them for me. Keep me too, and so your gift will grow and reach perfection, and I shall be with you myself, for I should not even exist if it were not by your gift. Expectations. Come on back. It's time to go. I want y'all to know that on this weekend we are going to do Lordstrom's. Now, Lordstrom's is our. So when I was in my small church in San Francisco, it was next to a public housing community, and these kids needed underwear. The young girls needed training bras. And it seemed to me, inviting 100 kids to the church and saying, here, you're poor, here's some underwear, take it. I wasn't feeling that. So I created something called Lordstrom's. And it's our own little mall. And we bring kids and they can get toys, but they got to shop for them. And before they shop for them, we do D-Free, we do an economic literacy. We teach them the value of money, no matter how small, how big. And we teach them that there's sometimes no difference between a name brand peanut butter and a regular peanut butter, but 50 cents for the marketing. And kids get personal shoppers so they can get underwear, but we don't have to get it for them. We teach them, here's how you buy this, and this is why you need this. So Lordstrom's is this weekend, and we are looking for y'all to help with toy donations. Now, I am told that we have some toys coming in, but we need boys and girls toys ages 6 to 8 and girls toys ages 9 to 11. Boys and girls toys ages 6 to 8, girls toys 9 to 11. Now, part of the issue is we closed church on Sunday, so some of you have them and you couldn't bring them. If you can bring them this week, we're getting ready Friday to help get them together. The time slots are 12 noon to 12:45, 1 to 1:45, and 2 to 2:45. These are the time slots we need some of y'all to come be personal shoppers, to walk with the kids, help the kids shop. So we're inviting you to come do some ministry. Come to First Baptist Saturday from 1 to 3, and we're asking you to help walk with the kid, help them get some underwear, help them get a toy, help them get some things. And these are the time slots we need you to volunteer. If your family's home for Christmas, bring your college kid. Come on down, do some ministry together. It is amazing. We also need toys still, girls 6 to 8, boys and girls 6 to 8, and girls 9 to 11. Or if somebody can put the link up, if you are one of our virtual members and you want to send a financial gift that will go to the toys, you can go online and you can actually put, I want this to go to the toys, and we will make sure that happens, right? We will make sure that happens. Secondly is our Christmas Spectacular. Our Christmas Spectacular is this Sunday. I'm sure they're going to put it up because I think they hate that I'm putting up these little flyers, but it's what I got. Our Christmas Spectacular this Sunday is our 10 a.m. service. Can I just tell you that it is better than Broadway? We have almost 110 people from the choir to dance. I mean, it is a whole vibe. And I'm going to tell y'all, get here early because it's going to be well attended. I'm excited. Thank you all. I hope this was helpful. I hope you've learned a little something. We're going to make it through our journey. There it is, the Christmas Spectacular. I hope you learned a little something about grief and making a change and what's next. Join us Sunday, 10 a.m. for our Christmas Spectacular. If you have not, hit the share button now. Share this on Facebook. Let somebody know. Check out Bible study. You learned something on YouTube, Instagram, our YouTube and our website. Copy the link. Send it to somebody you know that's going through something. Tell them, watch this. It may give you a different perspective on what you're going through. I am grateful that you all took the time. Let's go to God in prayer. God, we thank you and we honor you for your grace and your mercy. During this holiday season where we have downs, Lord, pick us up. For the lonely, I pray for their community. I seek you, God, for the unhoused in the sub-degree weather. Now, Lord, allow our ministry to continue to do amazing things, and we will give you glory and honor. Amen. All right, y'all. Have an amazing night. I'll see you Saturday.